Welcome home. We are WNST, AM 1570, Towson, Baltimore. We're Baltimore positive. This town loves me. Luke Jones joins us now. We're going to be doing the Maryland Crab Cake Tour on Wednesday in my homeland of White Marsh, where my son went to high school, the Hall, Perry Hall. I thought it would never work, the Avenue. What do I know? 30 years later, we're going to be doing the Crab Cake Tour. Presented by our friends at the Maryland Lottery. I will have the new scratch offs to give away, which are better than the old scratch offs. I'm having fun giving these new scratch offs away because it was such a good movie. Back to the Future. We'll have those to give away on Wednesday in White Marsh. Luke, the Orioles can't pitch. They don't hit every other day. No one's going to the games, even when they give out the Jedi. I am here, Luke. I am your conversation analyst. What's going on, man? May the 4th be with you, by the way. May the 5th be with you, too.
Hey, the Orioles, we talked about it. They took two out of three from the New York Yankees, and then on Saturday and Sunday they made the Kansas City Royals look like the New York Yankees, giving up 10 home runs. So, I mean, every time you try to have a glimmer of optimism, a shred of hope that this thing's going to turn around, then the Orioles go back to telling you who they are, which is a bad baseball team until they prove otherwise. I mean, 13 and 20 says it all. So, Friday night was great. Dean Kramer pitched well, and you get a crisp ball game. Yeah, not that they swung the bats incredibly well, but they get a big blow from Ryan O'Hearn, and then they win on Friday night. And you're thinking, okay, just took two out of three from the Yankees. Great chance to take two out of three from the Royals, who came into the weekend playing pretty well. And then, well, Saturday and Sunday happened, and Saturday they lose 4-0, but they didn't swing the bats. I mean, that was I've said it over and over. If this team gets nights where they give up 3 or 4 runs, which I'm not saying is anything to throw a parade over, but given the overall state of the pitching, you'll take that. And they got shut out. So, and then on Friday or Sunday, they get a day where they kind of answer back. They hit the long ball. Jackson Holiday has a really nice day. Some elements offensively that you should feel good about. And well, they give up 7 home runs, a franchise record for the Kansas City Royals, who, by the way, went into Saturday last in the majors in home runs. And well, again, you give up 10 home runs in 2 days.
I
I mean,
want
it's
to take that
just,
on as an owner of a George Brett bobblehead and a guy who's loved the Kansas City Royals forever. You were a little young, but I know you're such a historian, so you know this. But the Willie Wilson, Freddie Patek, George Brett era, the stadium was built not just to give everybody brain cancer, which it did, but also to hit triples and doubles, and it had these wide gaps and stuff. And I'm thinking when I heard that it was a franchise record, because I'm watching the game, like 7 home runs doesn't, it seems like the Royals would have done that at some point in 55 years. And I'm thinking to myself, well, what would the franchise record for the Orioles be? Did they ever hit 9 or 10 in a game? I mean, it's a lot of home runs to hit in a sport where there was a huge dead ball era, where there weren't a lot of home runs, where they moved fences back when the new stadiums got built primarily in the late 1990s. But then there were, you know, chicks dug the long ball. Everybody was sticking needles in their arms, and Pudge Rodriguez is in the bathroom with Rafael Palmeiro and Juan Gonzalez and Ruben Sierra, and they're all hitting 50 home runs. I don't know, but like I'm shocked that it's a record, 7 home runs in a game. I thought that would have happened before, but I don't know. It's a lot of home runs, man.
it is, but Orioles pitching finds a way, I guess. I mean,
That's all you got. I'm trying to do a history, and that's all you got is the Orioles
I,
pitching stinks.
I didn't hop on here thinking we were going to do a look back at the history of the Kansas City
Well, I'm
Royals.
trying
It's
to think of
just,
how many nights the Orioles hit 7 home runs. It's a
oh,
lot
I
of
mean,
home runs.
yeah, I mean,
Now that I'm
I,
thinking about it,
I mean,
what's
I'm
the
trying to
Oriole record? 8 or 9?
probably. I mean,
Okay.
off the top of my head, like I said, I don't have
It's a
that
weird
memorized, but
record to even bring up in the game. Like the Royals have hit
yeah,
seven. It got me thinking, like, well, they had to hit. I don't know. How many times have I looked at a box score and seen 7 home runs for one team? I've looked at a
yeah.
billion box scores. That's a lot of home runs, man.
Well, and the two teams combined to tie the record for most solo home runs in a game. What, 11 home runs
And you were out
solo.
screwing around with Mike Green. You missed a historic game at Camden Yards, Luke.
Yeah. So, uh, sure. I
What do you
mean,
want me to do? The 13 and 20. You want me to have a sense of humor? Or do you want me to fire the manager? What do you want me to do? I can go either way. I can
I mean,
fire the
it's
owner
just
and the woman that doesn't give me a press pass too. But like I am blown away. They're setting records in really bad ways, and I think
yeah,
when we talk about the pitching stinking and like we can make light of it, we could. And Dean Kramer can pitch well on a Friday night. Dean Kramer's capable of pitching well every fifth day, which is why they give him the ball. I'm not sure Charlie Morton's capable. I'm the Kyle Gibson thing. I'll hear. I like Kyle. I see his
yeah,
face, and I like Kyle. I don't know anything about Kyle Gibson, but I sort of like him. And the rest of this is just AAA trash. I mean, for the most part. And I think the bullpen, thinking it was going to be some sort of strength because Brian Baker was decent in the beginning, and you'll get some innings out of Bautista. I don't think the bullpen's any strength either. So, getting Eflin back is one of their only prayers. And getting to 500 and feeling that, I don't know, dog. I don't know. It's at 6, 7, 8, 9 under. I'm wondering how they're ever going to get pitching over a 30-day period, a 45-day period to get back to 500. You know what I mean? And
yeah,
maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they'll go 8-2 next week and sort of button things up now that they're in the lighter part of their schedule to some degree. But just on a daily basis, they don't perform offense well. They don't run the bases. They don't take pitches. They don't think in terms of banging a starting pitcher around and working him a little bit. Like they don't. This isn't a good team. You're right, but I'm trying to work through how the hell this happened this quickly. That we're in the middle of May and it's going to be Preakness week next week, and we're talking lacrosse around here this week.
yeah. Well, and again, let's not completely bury the lead in terms of yes, the pitching is horrific. They're also very injured. That is part of it. I know people don't want to hear that part of it, but go look how long their injured list is right now. That is absolutely a factor in what's going on here, that it's this bad, right? That it's been as
Well, it'll be
bad as it's
pitched that
been.
way by their
But,
employees because their
but,
employees control the message. So by the
well,
end of the
but I'm
year,
still
when
going to
they're
acknowledge
awful,
it. I
but
understand.
and I will agree with that. I
Right. I mean,
agree
it's
that like
absolutely part of it.
there's 100% that
Yeah.
if you're going
Yeah.
to shoot Mike Elias in the head, you have to talk about all of the good pitchers, all the acquisition of Burns, the acquisition of Eflin. He did things to fortify this thing. It hasn't worked out. It hasn't worked out.
I mean, he did some things. Now, some things better than others. And look, I will hear 100% if you're asking questions as far as why can't you keep players healthy? And, on the pitching side, I mean, on the position player side, I mean, all of that. So, look, it's just there's a lot of frustration. And everything you say about the pitching, I'm not disagreeing with you. I'll continue to come back to if you're going to do anything, this offense needs to look like a strength.
Dude, they
It's
hit 4
not.
home runs on Sunday, lost by 5 runs. That's hard to
Yeah, and they
do.
got shut out on Saturday, Nestor. Like you're cherry picking. Their offense has not been good.
I
Like
just said that. You didn't like it when I said it.
no, but I'm just saying at some point in time, like you keep lamenting the D student getting Fs while I'm sitting here looking at what's supposed to be an A student who has a C minus or a D plus average right now. I mean that I'm going to continue to hammer the offense because that's what's supposed to be good. That's what this team's strength is supposed to be. And it's not good. It's below average. It's horrendous against left-handed pitching. It's terrible with runners in scoring position. I mean, and believe me, I hear you on the pitching side in terms of trying to gain traction and winning 7 of 8, winning 10 of 11, going on a 2 week stretch where suddenly you can go from 7 games under to you're at 500. The pitching absolutely creates plenty of doubt that you can do that. But I'd say the same exact thing about the offense because Saturday was a very winnable game, even with the rain delay. I mean, Sagano coming back out there and going as deep as he did with a rain delay in the midst of that. That was kind of impressive, especially for someone pitching in the major leagues for the first time and not really dealing with many rain delays in the Japanese league
By the
when you
way,
kind
he's
of look.
already earned his money to me because he's
I
35
mean, it's
years
the one
old.
good signing they've made.
He
Yeah.
probably didn't, he didn't get paid what he was worth in Japan, wondering whether he should come over or not. Well, he's here and he's striking out Yankees and he's striking out Royals and he's getting ground balls and he's making it through 5, 6, 7 innings. And he's looking like the part of a major league pitcher who got $15 million, who's 35 years old. He
Yeah,
he
he's done a
might
good
as
job.
well have pitched it. He might as well be Jack Flaherty, who's worked out for us, like literally.
Yeah, except the problem is Charlie Morton hasn't just not only has he not worked out, but he's been horrendous to the point where he's a net negative, right? There are some pitchers out there that you would say, okay, he hasn't been very good, but it's kind of a whatever,
Well, when Cade
replacement
Povich is
level.
no good, you send him back to the minors. Say he needs some more. He needs some more baking. When it's a 41-year-old pitcher you gave $17 million to, who's pitched in big World Series games, you're just like he's washed up.
But you mentioned Cade Povich. If Charlie Morton right now had a 5.16 ERA, you wouldn't be singing his praises, but it wouldn't be so horrendous that you wouldn't have a chance to win when he's taking the ball some of the time, right? I mean, they haven't had a chance to win, at all when
Well,
he's
you
taking
made
the
the point
ball.
when there were 6 games under 500 and he was 0-6 that if he just were 3-3 and had a
Yeah.
couple of decent outings and had a 6 ERA, that the
I
team
mean,
would be 500 instead of 6, 7 games under 500. And I mean, it's that easy when you send a pitcher out there every fifth day who's going to lose. I don't know how much longer they get.
yeah,
Well, they don't send them out there to start anymore now. So this is just it's unspeakable that we're here in the first week of May talking about a team that won 192 games the last 2 years. And I don't want to say we're reading them rights, but you and I watched a lot of baseball. This does not feel like anything where they're going to get up off the mat and become a 600 baseball team for a period of time that they're going to be a playoff team.
yeah,
Just to be a 500 team, they're going to need to be a 600 team for a long time. And they don't have that kind of pitching. Now, they do have that kind of offense when it's all together. Take
I
Westberg
guess.
out, take Cowser out, take Urias out now. They got some guy. What is this guy's name? This guy's got the greatest name. Maverick Handley. Dude, if I made a movie, I couldn't come up with a star. If I made if I made Dirk Diggler, I couldn't come up with a name as good as this. Literally.
Maverick Henley, yeah, and nice kid. Glad to see him finally make it to the majors. I mean, he was a draft pick back in what 2019. It
I
doesn't
put him
prove.
between Harvey Haddix and Drungo Hayeswood in the all-time Oriole name game. I did. And I
And
looked it
I'm
up. He was right near Glenn Gulliver, but I thought Harvey Haddix was a better name than Glenn Gulliver. You'll agree with that, right?
sure, sure, and I would also say he doesn't cost $8.5 million as a backup catcher who can't be any worse than what Gary Sanchez has been. So look,
Where's Tyler Teargarden? He was my alt.
yeah,
That's a
Taylor
great name.
Teagarden, yeah, oh yeah. The funniest thing, I'll give you a little inside baseball here. I mean, when the Orioles signed him, what was that? That was before the 2012 season. I guess he was their backup catcher for part of that season, but he got hurt in spring training, and I hadn't done spring training that March, and you'd get these periodic updates from Buck Showalter about Teagarden and how he was doing in Sarasota. I was convinced he wasn't a real person, right? I mean, we heard these updates for probably three and a
Yeah,
half
you're
months or
making
whatever.
that up. There's no way your name can be Maverick Handley. You know
Yeah,
what I mean? Like that's
exactly.
just not possible,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. So, but I mean, what you just said, and look, I'll hear it, and especially now they are banged up now, position player wise, they absolutely are. But they weren't hitting even before all those guys went on the IL. So, I mean, it just you at some point in time, a team is 13-20. They have a minus 55 run differential. They have the worst pitching staff in baseball, certainly the worst rotation. I I still like the bullpen more than the rotation, but it's not elite or anything like that, right? And certainly over the last several days has really disappointed.
But if they
Uh,
beat out 6 runs and they're winning 6-3 in the sixth inning,
but they also
do
have
you
nights where
trust
they
the
pitch
bullpen?
well. Well, it depends. I mean, it depends on the night. Look, Yenyer Cano gave up 2 home runs on Sunday. He hadn't given up a run before that. I'm not going to suddenly bury him, but the point is their bullpen so much better than the rotation that you feel like it can overcome the rotation? No, of course not. So, but we keep providing this caveat that if the offense starts performing, if the offense does this, if this young core is truly as good as and then, we keep looking up at the standings and it is what it is. I mean, their offense is below average in its totality. It's horrendous against left-handed pitching. It's horrendous with runners in scoring position. Your stars are not playing like stars. I mean,
Rutschman's hitting
Ryan
216.
O'Hearn is their
Mountcastle's hitting
star.
202. Kerstedt's at 2-0. Kersted's just a failure I mean, Kersted's not ready to
Uh,
do this every day.
I
He's
mean,
not.
I don't want to I think it's unfair to label
No,
him a
no, no, no,
failure,
no, no.
but
But
he's not
that's the
looking.
wrong
It's
word.
not
He's
looking
failing.
promising.
he's
It's
failing right now.
yeah.
He's
Oh,
not
sure.
ready to
No.
do this.
And again, I don't want to I don't want to stamp any of these guys with a finality to it, but yeah, I mean, we the silver lining to Colton Cowser going on the IL was, well, we're going to find out about Heston Kjerstad. Well, he's hitting 205 and he has a 349 slugging percentage. I mean, it's not looking great, and maybe the defense isn't. I don't think he's the worst outfielder in baseball, but he's certainly not a guy that you look at as this great plus defender.
Dude, he got
So
doubled up, and it looked like he
that
wasn't
was a bad
moving.
look. I think, I don't think he was jaking it in the sense that he just wasn't trying. I think he lost how many outs there were, which is inexcusable as well. But yeah, it's a bad look. It's a
Keep
terrible
your
look.
head in the game, Luke. Keep
Sure,
your head in the game.
sure.
Yeah.
So I mean, but yeah, you just look at this thing in its totality. The pitching, of course. The defense is not good. The base running is bleh. And their offense, every time they have a performance like Sundays, where okay, they hit some long balls and they even answered back a few times. I mean, they showed some fight, which they hadn't necessarily had a lot of games like that where they would fall behind and then someone hit a home run and they tie it up, or they even took the lead, and then the pitching just completely cratered in the late innings. And by the way, Brandon Hyde deserves any second guessing he's going to get bringing Charlie Morton in the eighth inning of a game where you're down 2 runs. I mean, it's not like their bullpen had worked that much over the course of the weekend. I mean, Dean
And they
Kramer
got
pitched
Monday off
seven.
too.
Yeah, Dean
Yeah.
Kramer pitched seven. I mean, what are you doing? Like honestly, and I don't say that very often. And I think a lot of Brandon Hyde's harshest critics pick out whatever they want to pick out to criticize him
Well,
over.
Charlie
That
Morton's
was
going to be
very
off the
fair.
team soon, right? I mean,
I
let's
mean,
and it's a lot of money, and it's like Craig Kimbrell last year, but
yeah.
like if he can't help you out of the bullpen, he's not help you're not putting him back in the rotation, and the biggest reports for the Orioles, and this is a tribute to Masson and Melanie, is everything is about who's coming, who's coming, who's coming, where are we getting help, Kittredge is throwing the ball, and Bradish will be back, and Eflin's working on it, and I mean that's all you have at this point because what they have isn't good enough. Kobe Mayo's up now, right? So we're going to see 50 at bats out of him the next couple of weeks, right?
Well, I mean, I think a lot of it depends how quickly Westberg comes back. How Westberg and Arias, it doesn't seem like either one of those guys are expected to be out long term. That said, for me, it's not even about them. I mean, you've heard me say this for the better part of 2 years now, Nestor. Why is Jorge Mateo on this roster still? I mean, do you really need a pinch runner once a week, twice a week, when maybe there's a situation that calls for him to be the pinch
Well, to
runner?
your point,
Because
he's used as second baseman, shortstop, third baseman. He was a flex
yeah,
infielder kind of thing, and he's not even the second flex infielder at this point that they want to move around, right?
I mean, I just think you're at a point now, and obviously this point isn't as strong with Westberg on the IL at the moment, but all I see Jorge Mateo doing is taking at bats away from Jackson Holiday when there's a lefty on the mound, and Jackson Holiday, just play him, just play him. Like I don't this slow playing and not playing against left-handers, and I get it. He hasn't been great against left-handers, but he's had his moments. I mean, it's not like he hasn't had any hits against lefties where I just look at it and say, it's one thing, and this goes back to my general point about their right-handed hitters off the bench and what, their lack of success against left-handed pitching, where I said, look, it's not like you have Steve Pearce and Delman Young on the bench to start against left-handed pitchers. So, I mean, I just look at this roster and right now, again, it's banged up, so this point's not as strong. But generally speaking, play the young guys, cut the dead weight from the roster, and to bring it back to Charlie Morton. I mean, you can keep him in the bullpen for a little bit longer, but and this is where I'll stick up for Brandon Hyde slightly, ever so slightly. I can't justify that from a strategic standpoint, but from a standpoint in a 30,000-foot look in justifying Charlie Morton being on the roster, if you can't bring him in when you're down a couple runs with an expectation that he can keep it at a couple run deficit, then when exactly is he going to pitch? I mean, when exactly you're going to use him? You need these bullpen spots. You don't have a rotation where you're going to have two guys at the back end of your bullpen, not back end, front end of your bullpen, who aren't going to pitch very
But
often.
putting Morton in that Suarez role,
I
that's
mean,
not realistic.
no matter what the role, like if you're in the Orioles bullpen, given the state of the starting rotation, you're going to have to pitch some.
You're in a game that matters every
But
night.
that said,
Yeah.
Sunday specifically, looking at it in the micro, I that was a head scratcher to me, and I can't defend Brandon Hyde on that. But in a big picture sense, if you can't trust Charlie Morton to come in when you're trailing by a couple runs at, whether it's the fifth inning, whether it's the eighth inning and you're down 3 runs or something like that, if you can't even trust him to do that, then yeah, I mean, at some point in time, you look at this thing and say it's a sunk cost. I mean, the $15 million is spent. There's no, I, I mean, unless you truly think you can figure out a way to get him going. And I don't know what that entails. I don't know if that
Well,
entails.
they keep looking at spin rate, and they're looking at his arm, and his arm's fit. He's throwing a fastball. Like they have
I mean, I
more
just,
science about everything to look at him and say, well, he's fit. There's nothing wrong with him.
yeah,
And he is a veteran pitcher. He ought to be able to do this. And I guess that's why Brandon Hyde gave him the ball in the eighth inning on
I
Sunday.
guess. Yeah. I mean, it's just, it's, you just look at this team in its totality. And at some point in time, you just have to accept and believe what they're telling you. I mean, they're telling you they're a bad baseball team, but because they don't do anything particularly well. I mean, they just don't. What's the strength of this team? We know it's supposed to be the offense. Mike Elias sat in the dugout Friday afternoon and expressed the conviction that this offense is going to be better than it's been. But my goodness, we've been saying that since last July. I mean, it's not a particularly good offense. And we know the pitching stinks. I mean, so what is giving anyone hope at this
Is
point in time?
Mountcastle dead weight to you at this point? Because I'm looking at Mullins and I'm looking at O'Hearn, and they were both sort of given up for death. I mean, obviously O'Hearn was given up on, but Mullins this time last year was sort of, is it going to be him or Austin Hayes who's going
Yeah.
to get out of the way? Because Kowser's going to be an all-star, and Mayo's going to be an all-star, and Kerstedt's going to be an all-star, and Holliday's going to be a Hall of Famer. And I mean, that's the way this has been pitched. And at a time when the fan base is vulnerable, they won 100 games 2 years ago. You have new ownership coming in. Everybody wants to believe in everything. Everybody wants to
Yeah.
believe Rubenstein's going to be a great owner, and Elias is a genius, and Sig Mejdal is a genius, and Brandon Hyde's going to hang on and be a gamer ball coach that had all the roots from the World Series lineage that he came from, and all of that. And Rutschman's a 1-1, and Henderson's a phenom, and Holliday's going to be a phenom. Like, that's how this has been pitched by us, by you and me,
Yeah.
over the last 2 years. And now all of a sudden, you can't tell me Kerstedt can't play, and Kowser's too hurt, and Westberg's he's been out 2 years in a row now, and Rodriguez's arm's going to fall off. And I mean, that is the promise. That is what we were selling. That's
Yeah.
what they're pitching. I wasn't pitching, hey, Cedric Mullins and Ryan Mountcastle and Ryan O'Hearn are going to lead this thing. They're not. And Santander was another piece that, look, I know about power hitting 30 something, even Venezuelan guys that I like a lot. I know what that looks like. And Nelson Cruz is the outlier and not more like Chris Davis signings than there are like Nelson Cruz signings in regard to signing those kinds of players. So I had no problem with Santander
Yeah.
leaving. By the way, Tyler O'Neill, we didn't brought him up. They gave him
Yeah.
60 million, right? We haven't brought him up. We're not even holding him responsible.
Yeah. Well, and I'll point out just because you brought him up. I mean, Santander's hitting 178 with a 577 OPS for the Blue Jays. I mean, again, you kind of look at this thing and what exactly is giving you hope right now, other than just the same hope that they've been selling for years. And look, this isn't the Orioles of 25 years ago hyping up their own prospects while the rest of the baseball world said, guy's not really that good.
Yeah, Alex Ochoa, I don't
I
think
mean,
so.
they had some, and it's not like I mean, Alex Ochoa got them Bobby Bonilla, right? I mean,
Right.
so clearly the Mets liked him enough.
He was no Chris Widger,
but I
but
don't
you know
need
what I
to
mean.
tell you that. I mean, they had guys over the years that they really liked a lot that the rest of baseball was not as high on. Not
Let,
that they,
let, let me let me do my Sid
but
drift here because I just like doing it. Now, Nestor, I got a 5-tool ball player, Luis Matos. Luis Matos, a 5-tool ball player.
I
That was pretty
that's
good.
pretty good,
Yeah.
pretty good. It's funny you mentioned that because I really liked Luis
Hey, I know
Montes.
you did.
I
That's why I
did.
brought him
I mean, it
up,
was way back when.
And you know
Uh,
why you liked him?
and he did
Because
have a,
you were 12 years old and they
oh,
all
no,
blew
I was
smoke
older
up your
then.
rectum
I was
and
20
told you
then.
that, well, but yeah, this is the fan base. That's what they
Yeah.
do. Always
He was good.
overestimate your own
He had
prospects.
a good year. He
Sid
had
taught
a
me
good
that.
year.
Sid. Now we all always going to talk good about our
No,
ball
but but
players.
but
We expect the broadcasters to do that too.
but the point with all of this is this was not just the Orioles saying this. I mean, this was Baseball America saying this. This was Baseball Prospectus saying this. This was Fangraphs saying this. This was Keith Law of the Athletic saying this. I mean, these guys are all highly touted. And now we also understand that that doesn't mean everyone's going to make it. And we also know there are varying degrees to this. In the same way that Matt Wieters did not become Johnny Bench, it didn't mean Matt Wieters was a bust either. He was a multiple time all-star, right? He just wasn't Johnny Bench. He wasn't Joe Mauer with power. He was merely a good ball player. Um, so there can be some of that. Like just because someone doesn't become a Hall of Famer doesn't mean that they completely stink either.
I
Uh,
keep wondering if Adley Rutschman had B.J. Surhoff's career, would that be good? B.J. Surhoff had a really nice career, made a
yeah,
lot of money, but B.J. Surhoff's not a Hall of Famer, and
yeah.
he'll be at the crab races 2 weeks from now down
Well,
at Fadley's as well. So I'll throw that in for him and Polly. But he's a really good ball player. I mean, I didn't want to in
sure.
any way disrespect B.J. Surhoff, but if that's all that Adley Rutschman turns out to be, it'll be a disappointment just because of what it's been
Well,
alleged to be. That's all.
there's that, and it was Adley Rutschman or who? Bobby Witt,
Oh,
and
sure.
Bobby Witt looking like every bit the
That
MVP
clang on
player.
the home run when it hit that thing out in left field was
Yeah,
rude. That's
but
all I'm
but
going to say.
I mean, Bobby Witt would be looking like a perennial MVP if not for Aaron Judge existing in the American League right now. So, and some people, I've heard some people say that, well, if you drafted Bobby Witt, you wouldn't have Gunnar Henderson. I'd say why? I mean that those aren't related. You draft shortstops, you draft center fielders. That you draft those guys because the idea is many of them are going to move off that spot. If you drafted Bobby Witt, and I'm not looking to make this a referendum as we talk about all these other issues, but if you draft Bobby Witt, Gunnar Henderson's probably your
Well,
starting third baseman then.
Holiday's a shortstop. Henderson's a
Yeah, I mean, who
shortstop.
knows? Who knows, right?
Westberg probably was a shortstop at
He
one
was,
point.
absolutely
Yeah, I
was.
mean
No,
they're all shortstops.
he was a shortstop for most of his minor league career. So yeah, but no, to get back to your point, I mean, the Orioles drafted these 1-1s and these first round picks, and in Gunnar Henderson's case, you know, next round, guys that were either top of the draft or guys that were the first couple rounds of the draft, which are the guys that you have expectations for in the baseball draft, knowing that anything after that is kind of it's a toss up. I mean, you don't really know, but the results are eh. I mean, you've there have been moments in the case of Rutschman, there were 2 calendar years where he looked like okay, not Johnny Bench, but was looking like an all-star slash fringe MVP candidate, let's say. But since last July, he hasn't looked like that. I mean, Gunnar Henderson, first half of last year, you can go back and find it. He was my MVP for the American League through about the third week of June. Since then, he hasn't been that guy. No, not that he was awful in the second half last year. Certainly wasn't anything like what Adley Rutschman was in terms of his struggles, but didn't play like a top three MVP kind of player the way he was in the first half of the season. So, but you go down the list and then you do factor in the injuries and what Mike Elias has done to quote augment this roster. When you decide to walk away from Anthony Santander, which I had no problem. I did not have any interest in giving Santander a 5-year deal. I'll continue to say that. And if Santander makes 3 All-Star teams over the next 5 years, then I'll say I was wrong. It
By
wouldn't
the
be the
way, you
first
probably
time.
had no interest in giving Tyler O'Neill 3 years either in that money.
Probably not.
Yeah,
Probably
I wouldn't
not.
have done that.
But I guess they were able to talk me into it with the thought that it was going to open up more playing time for Heston Kjerstad, right? Well, we've kind of seen how that's worked. Tyler O'Neill hasn't been good and is hurt, and Heston Kjerstad, he's
But
had
all that being said, if Cowser were healthy, how many at bats would Kjerstad have?
I mean, not as many as he's been getting, but he'd be in some. I mean, there's plenty of at bats for them to pass
Well, if
around. I
Cowser
mean,
was hitting 321 and playing every day, I don't know, if he really
well,
were.
I mean, he wouldn't be hitting 320. He's not going to profile like that, but I mean, he would help. I hope, I expect, I suppose, but say that about a lot of these guys right now who aren't performing. I mean, it's very frustrating. I mean, it's wild to think back to where they were a year ago at this time, let alone 2 years ago, where that was when they were really, really starting to take off. And to think that their best offensive players to this point, knowing that Gunnar Henderson's in the majors, Adley Rutschman's in the majors, go down the list, Jackson Holiday, all of them. But to think that through, the first 6 weeks of the season, 7 weeks of the season now, Cedric Mullins and Ryan O'Hearn have been their best players. And look, I say that to compliment those two, but also it's pretty damning for their young core that Mullins and O'Hearn, who are, at this point, basically 30 somethings. And I don't want to disrespect Cedric. I mean, he's been to an all-star team, a 30-30 guy 4 years ago, but he's also cooled off a little bit, which inevitably he was going to. But, you look at the rest of these guys, Henderson's starting to hit for average. I mean, his average is up to 260. He's not really hitting for a ton of power, though. Rutschman, you can keep looking at the batted ball data. And yes, I absolutely will agree. Adley Rutschman has been better this year than he was in the second half of last year. But man, that was a really low bar, right? That was a really low bar in terms of like, what the heck is going on?
It's not an
This is,
all-star bar. That's a
yeah,
do you belong in the big leagues bar.
yeah. And I mean, again, we can keep looking at these expected stats until you're blue in the face, but at some point in time, it's got to come to fruition. And again, you look at the production or lack thereof against lefties and the lack of production against with runners in scoring position, and you couple that with where their pitching is. They played like a 13-20 team. I mean, there's nothing. Yeah, you can talk about the injuries. You can talk about, I've, that people even keep track now of umpire data, and it looks like the Orioles have kind of been on the shorter end a little bit. They track to 30 teams and they'll say, but even if you want to look at the injuries, even if you want to look at that and say, okay, they've had some tough luck, it's not explaining this. It's not explaining this. They've been bad across the board. And at some point in time here, it's getting late early. I mean, it is. The saving grace is that the American League East, even the Yankees in first place, they're not completely running away with it. The rest of the AL East is very mediocre. That's about the only saving grace right now for the Orioles looking at this division. But at some point in time, you block all that noise out. I mean, they're 13-20 and they've got a lousy run differential. Their pitching is awful. Their offense at best is mediocre. Their defense has been statistically and looking at metrics bad. Their base running has been eh. So what exactly are we looking at here to truly have hope other than just the same hope they were selling even going back to the rebuild, that you keep waiting for these players to start playing like that, and they're not. And the ones who aren't playing and are hurt, they're not contributing, obviously. So it just leads to a lot of frustration. And I'll hear it. Eflin through on Sunday. It looks like he's, whether he makes one more rehab start or not, he's close. But man, there's just not a whole lot to feel overly optimistic about until this team just starts playing better. And they had a chance to win Sunday. If they won Sunday, and it's not like they lost 13-1. If they win that game Sunday, we're having a different tone here in terms of, hey, they won 2 out of 3. They won back-to-back series. They finished off a homestand at 4-2. Now, the couple games that they lost, it didn't feel so great, and their pitching's still a major issue, and their offense still isn't clicking all the way around, but it's a win. I said it to you during the Yankees series. Just win however you can, even if it's by 1 run, even if it's winning ugly, so to speak. But they didn't, and they finished off 3-3. Fine, but nothing to write home about kind of homestand. And now I will say this, and I'll leave you with this thought, and we'll pick it up, I'm sure. But you're going on the road. Twins have been a mess since last September. although they won a series over the weekend. And the Angels have been a mess for a long time, overall for years now, even with Otani and Mike Trout, going back years now. But you've got to win a couple series. I mean,
Well,
if you
the
go on the
Angels
road,
squandered Otani and Trout and won nothing. It would not be a shocker that Rutschman and Holiday and Henderson.
yeah,
You got to go earn this. This isn't. You got to
I'll,
go
I'll
play the games.
I will say this, and I mentioned the AL East. I didn't mention this team. Just in passing, I mentioned them with Santander. Think back to how you perceived the Blue Jays 5 years ago. Didn't the Blue Jays very much feel like the Orioles
Big
when they
bats,
when they were on the
Encarnacion,
come? These young
arms that
guys,
were
all of
waiting on
that,
Marcus Stroman and all those guys. Sure.
and look at how that ended up turning out. I mean, now they're at a point. I mean, they signed Vlad, great, all right. They gave him $500 million. Does that team have? Is there any optimism for them moving forward? It doesn't really feel like it. I mean, okay, I guess they'll be happy to have Vlad Guerrero out there in the same way that the Angels have had Mike Trout all these years, and signed him long term and all that. But yeah, that's what it speaks to. Like for every Astros situation or Cubs situation where yeah, do get over the hump and you do get to the top of the mountain, there are some where even if you feel like you rebuild well, not talking about teams like the Pirates where they're just like
Well, the Padres are
constantly,
trying. You know what I
yeah,
mean? There are teams that are trying that can't get there.
but you sometimes you don't get there. And I mean, I'm not ready to completely call this thing finished in the big picture long-term sense, but boy, they're leaking a lot of oil at this point in time, and this is not. I'm not optimistic. I've said this for a few weeks. It's not earth-shattering,
We
breaking
also wonder
news here,
where's the
but
pitching coming from? What's the offseason going to
you know,
look like for the? I mean, they don't have anybody at high A Aberdeen who looks like a top of the rotation starter. They haven't drafted those kind of players. I mean, this is
some of the promising pitchers that they have down below. Guess what? They're hurt too. I mean, they have some of their and look, none of these guys are like Grayson Rodriguez, Dylan Bundy, Hunter Harvey type top 100 prospect types, but guys that are at least interesting arms. They have a few of those that are hurt now. So I mean, it's just where Mike Elias could, and he was fully accountable on Friday. He said everything that he could say, I suppose, but at some point in time, you just start losing trust that is your front office truly as smart as you thought it was? Is your coaching staff as good as it was? Are your players as talented as you thought they were? And that's where I am at this point. I'm questioning everything. I mean, I just really am. And I don't say that to mean that they're completely doomed, that they're going to be entering another multi-year rebuild, but I am very pessimistic at looking at what 2025 is because the Orioles aren't giving me any reasons to be optimistic at this point in time. They're telling us over and over and over again they're not a good baseball team, and as we're approaching the second week of May, I'm believing them because there's not a whole lot that I feel great about now, other than the same old hope that we've been sold for years.
Luke Jones is here. He is there out on the internet at Baltimore Luke. You can find both of us out at Baltimore Positive. I will be on Wednesday at Red Brick Station in White Marsh. I will have the Back to the Future scratch also in the Maryland Lottery to hand out. My big thanks to Liberty Pure, our friends at Curio Wellness as well, putting us out on the road and getting things done around here. It is springtime. We are past the Derby, on to Preakness week. I'll be doing some horse racing next week. Also going to be hosting this program at the Maryland Party in Las Vegas, Nevada next weekend. So I'll be telling you more about that all week long. I hope you read my tribute to rocker Mike Peters of The Alarm. I found a long lost audio tape of me singing a song with him from 25 years ago that I don't think I even told my wife about it or told Luke about it or anybody else, but I found it and I platformed it out at Baltimore Positive. Lots of things going on. We had a great time last week at Coco's on the Crab Cake Tour. Jamie Costello, Howard Perlow from the Maryland Party. Also had a great chat with Rasig about zero tolerance. Luke spent Sunday at Ravens camp with Mike Green. We'll step out. We'll take a break. We'll come back. I am Nestor. We are WNST, AM 1570, Towson, Baltimore. And we never stop talking. Baltimore Positive.